Welcome and thanks for joining us on the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. Each week, we sit down with CRE experts to uncover trends, insights, and strategies shaping the industry. I'm Shanti Ryle, Director of Content Marketing here at Crexi, and today we are so excited to sit down with Marty Mooradian, Associate Vice President at Colliers. Before we dive in, a little bit about our guest. Marty is a seasoned multifamily broker with extensive experience in transacting assets in the $5 million to $30 million range, which is very intentional, and we'll get into that. His accomplishments are many, including receiving the largest deal award in the Carolina region at Marcus and Millichap. These accolades underscore his dedication and expertise in the real estate industry as a whole. Beyond his professional achievements, Marty embraces a wide array of passions. He's ventured into the world of coding, which we will also get into today, self-teaching himself Python and Ruby on Rails. He has also a deep appreciation for language and culture and is currently immersed in learning 2 Armenian dialects and mastering the intricacies of the Armenian alphabet. It is not easy learning languages, so definitely want to talk about that. Marty began his brokerage career with Marcus and Millichap, working in the multifamily sector for over 6 years. He then continued on into the commercial real estate technology space, helping property owners throughout the country secure quality, financeable leases for their assets. He then went back to Colliers to continue building out their multifamily team. And he possesses a very extensive background in digital marketing, utilizing innovative strategies to enhance online presence and engagement for his clients. His skills have been instrumental in this area for driving business growth and fostering stronger client relationships. Marty, welcome to the podcast.
That was quite the intro. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you've got quite the story, and I'm very excited to dive on in. First of all, is Armenian, just for fun, or are you a polyglot as well?
It's funny. I have grown up Armenian, have an
Mm.
Armenian last name, and it's a culture where when you meet another Armenian, the first thing, everyone gets really excited when you're in America and you meet another Armenian, you instantly become cousins and the language starts flowing, right? And for a while, I felt like an imposter Armenian, where I had the last name. My dad is half Armenian, half Portuguese. My mom's Italian, and I learned Spanish growing up in high school and college, but never dove into the Armenian thing because it was confusing.
Yeah.
It has a completely different character base, and I had to sort of wrap my head around that. But I started, I'm really involved with the Armenian church here in Richmond. We have one of the biggest food festivals in the city, and it's I basically was like, I'm going to do this. I signed up for a trip, and it was all kind of COVID inspired. I think being locked down made the travel just, the wanderlust sort of kind of really
Sure.
grow. And my wife and I decided, hey, let's go. And we got this really great trip, and I was like, I'm gonna learn the language and not even knowing what you don't know. So there's 2 dialects. There's Western Armenian, which is what the diaspora speaks, and then there's Eastern Armenian, which they speak in Armenia, the country. So everyone at church is speaking the Western dialect, and then warning me that, hey, this doesn't really sound like anything when you go there. And the D's and the T's are swapped, the B's and the P's. There's all these certain
Oh
things. There's
no.
phrases that are used. It has a kind of a Russian influence
Sure.
in Armenia because it was part of the Soviet Union at one point. So it was one of those things where I started with Western, and the first thing you do when you're dealing with this language is 38 characters, and some of them look like the stuff I'm used to, but I got a book that it basically taught people how to teach Western Armenian. It was the only thing I could find.
Wow.
And the first thing they do is like you just print out all these charts of the letters and you do like math problems where
Mm.
it helps you identify them. But anyway, it
Like phonics
was
ish. Like,
yeah, and
yeah.
it was fun. And then you get busy, right? Like work kind of gets in the way, and then you lose a whole bunch, and then you start. It's like this whole perpetual thing, but really, it's an endangered language. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. I felt really compelled to do it. And then when I got there, I was able to. do basic things like order food, ask directions, that kind of thing. And then wherever I failed, Google Translate picked up and helped out.
Thank goodness for Google Translate or the new AirPods. They'll live translate some
Yeah, I
languages,
heard
which is
about that.
really cool. Yeah, I'm excited
Hmm.
to try it. I'm currently trying to teach myself German, and same thing, like Northern German versus Southern German versus Austria, just different phrases they use for different reasons. So a lot of brain stretching, but that's really awesome. I wish you best of luck on that journey. It's not easy. But taking us back to, your career path, working commercial real estate, how did you land in the industry? Was it, trip fall after a sneeze? Did you choose to go into this path? What led you into the world of CRE and made you decide you wanted to stick around?
It was so I this is a second life for me. I spent the first kind of half of professional life after school in the fundraising space for political campaigns,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was traveling a lot doing that. And one of the last races that I did, it was a United States Senate race. I was a finance director for them. I was meeting all these people in Richmond, and I was also reading sort of like the business journals here in town and reading about these just ginormous deals that in the apartment space, 20 million here, 15 million there, and you start reading about these names and you're like, who are these people? What are they? And this just seems so exciting. And my former life was, I was on the phone probably, I don't know, 5 hours a day on average, just booking meetings, trying to just build a database out, really just mining data and just trying to build this thing. And it was really tough. So I lived in the town where the candidate was from, and they were like, you're going to have more than anybody. You got to do a morning fundraiser, a lunch fundraiser, then two evening, and then and here's our database, and it'll get you about 30% of the way there. Good
Wow.
luck. And so I came into it with just sort of knowing that like I'm reading about these people like in town, and I'm like, this seems pretty interesting because I knew like after that I was getting too old to do the political campaign junket, and I was like, I gotta kind of exit out of here. And my father's in residential real estate up in Rhode Island, and I was like, well, maybe that's a thing, but I didn't want to do. I really just I don't enjoy those house shopping shows. Like my wife watches them all the time, like people buying beach houses, and
Yeah.
I was like, that's not for me. But I had this. I really wanted to sort of get into real estate, and I got kind of connected with some people through people I knew in town, but it was kind of like a boutique kind of situation. And fast forward a few years, I got an opportunity to go to Marcus and Millichap, and just the way they explained the day, they're like, hey, you're going to be you know, 50 calls a day on average for new agents and whatever, but they were like, these are proven metrics that work. And at that 50 calls a day after doing what I was doing before, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah,
You're like,
I'll do
that's a
this.
breeze.
Yeah. And I got connected with a really good team, based out of DC, but I had the Richmond market essentially to myself. And it was really, I mean, it was everything I was looking for as far as the grind, and like I had just some early success. This business seems to be one of those things where you could do all the things right, nothing happens. You could do everything wrong, be really successful, or you could just like kind of be at the right place at the right time. And I think it was probably like a mixture of all three of those things where I mean, like as a new agent focusing on investment sales, the business development side of it is everything. And then plugged in with how they kind of mentor, like plugging you in with a team, you really just ride co-pilot on a lot of deals until you know you can handle it yourself, go on meetings on yourself. But it was a good way to get into it because I was, to put it in the best way, I was fledgling before having a good mentor, and it was a just I was doing a lot of leasing, but like nail salons or anybody that would talk to some guy that has no real estate experience, right? So I had a little listing, I put it on Craigslist, and I would just do a lot of nail salons. And a buddy of mine pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey, listen, man, it's great to be busy, but at the end of the day, these are probably like $1,500 commissions and great, but at the end of the year, you might be like way under where you need to be just because you run out of time. And it was sort of like not having that tutelage was really kind of holding me back. And then when I kind of got into the Marcus and Millichap space, it was like between the training and then just how they conceptualize the business for like a new agent is it was really sort of where like got some traction and hit the ground, and it was able to do some really. I think I had I had a lot of luck that I think got me from, let's call it the 1 to 5 million space to the, call it like $6 to $12 million space within a short amount of time, and I just wrote it and just basically did everything I could to just kind of keep operating in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, luck is a huge part of it, and I think has a lot to do with the attrition you see in brokers early years of their career. If they can't make it work, you got to have a really robust savings net behind you, because
Hmm.
you just don't know what's going to land or not land. But speaking of, those early days before and then during your time at Marcus, um, what were the biggest learning curves for you? What do you feel like maybe it took you a little bit longer to internalize? Were there early, you mentioned the focusing on nail salons and being mindful of where you spend your time, but were there any other like mistakes that were personal favorites of yours that, now you do it this way in your current line of work?
One of the things we kind of, we're all about numbers, right? In the commercial real estate space, it's, you get the financials, you put the models together, and it's numbers, numbers, numbers. And I think there's the thing that I would, if I could turn back the clock and just sort of say, hey, mistakes I made, I think it was being too married to the numbers to where motivation plays way more into a lot of these deals uh than the numbers do, right? So like and then sales, like it's still sales, and it's sort of, and I still fall victim to this sometimes where it's funny, like I had somebody on my team that no matter what deal they were getting a call about, they're like, oh, this one's my favorite deal, and they would really start selling the deal like right then and there, and I was like, oh, that's right, like you have to like sort of still sell these things, like the numbers don't always sell themselves, but there were a lot of times where I was really digging in to not buy a listing, and meaning like overprice it slightly to get it, or even take a reduced commission on it as well. Like, but it was like I didn't want to. I was really just rigid and no, this is the pricing, and I
Mm.
would watch just someone else grab it and then it either sell higher than where I was, so I was wrong on price or whatever. But I was like, I should have been better at. Um, just sort of gauging that motivation and then really just tying it up and playing the expectation game with the sellers. Like nowadays, the expectation game is played day one. It's like, hey, this is where we think everything is going to come in. You always have your outliers that are going to be above or below, wherever, but it's the expectation game for me in the beginning was very amateur, where I was just, your property's worth 2.2. Uh, if they wanted 2.5, 2.6, it was sort of like not
Nope.
reaching to, yeah, yeah, or like just sort of, like, or like just sort of like really having too much pride in my underwriting to where
Mm.
I don't know. But anyway, it, it's
Yeah,
for
no,
the
that
love of
I think that's a really great point. A lot of people when they come into brokerage, they're either really good at selling, meaning they're charismatic, they get people to trust them, they can smooth talk sometimes their way into getting, the client deal, or they really try to build up, like you said, the number side of things. Like it is an art to underwriting, but it is still numbers, and the numbers have to pencil to make sense. And, much more so than in residential real estate, commercial real estate, you want to find as much way as possible to remove the emotional factor from the equation if you can. But finding that blend is all important, right? It's not just a technical role, it's an advisory role. So you still, as a broker, have to get them to trust you, to meet them where they're at, to kind of, have the presence of mind. If you've got that number, that 2.2 million, they want 2.5. How can you get them there, in a partnership modality, right? So I really key lesson to zone in on early on for brokers, definitely.
Yeah, and I just when I think back to it, it's just sort of it's a little bit of hubris too, right? Like you always like so, there's sometimes when you're new, you're thinking, I know what I'm doing. This person, and it's funny. I just had a conversation with an owner because she was skeptical. I forgot what we were the topic, but it was mainly it was sort of like a you know locality thing, right? And I said,
Mm,
and I kind of threw it out there. I said, listen, you're right. These properties, you've been assembling this your entire adult life. You live in the community. You obviously, I don't, right? But like, I'm looking at sort of the past and what things have sold in the past, and I don't doubt that you're right on a lot of these things. But then I'm like, but here's where most people are going to finance this, and here's how they're going to look at it probably. And it's also one of those things where like just establishing that motivation like right there, but also just saying like, hey, you're right, like this is an art, right? It's just
mhm.
we wish it was a science. I mean, if it was a science, like literally anyone could do it, right?
Yep.
Because you could just follow sort of like a step by step kind of thing. But it's like you don't know what's going to happen. You could have something completely like an idea of how a deal is going to go. And I've been so sure about things taken out and then have gotten crickets for the first 3.5 weeks, which is like the scariest thing you
Mm,
could ever do.
mhm.
Because you're just going, okay, I could, have it on Crexi Pro or I could like boost it in any other way, but it's sort of like I'm not getting the response that I thought the market was going to do. And it's sort
Yeah.
of, but the thing is too, is like, it's like we talked about, it's like you have to play that motivation game with the sellers because if you do get their trust, that you are their advisor, they do know that, hey, it happens, right? Like life is unpredictable, markets are unpredictable, and you just never know with
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And life comes at you fast. Every
Hmm.
individual has to deal with life as it comes, which can throw all sorts of monkey wrenches into a process. Um, so, learning these lessons early on, you're at Marcus Millichap for a few years, then you eventually end up going to Colliers. They ask you to build their East Coast team. So, starting in a new brokerage is one thing. It's a whole different set of systems. It's a different team. Um, but what was it like for you going from the brokerage side, like you're doing your own thing, to, oh, now I've been tasked with building this team? What were some early strategies you had to put into play to grow that wing of Collier's
Yeah,
business?
and,
And
and
what were you most focused on in the beginning and as you
yeah,
scaled?
yeah, and to give you just a little more clarity on the role, right?
Yeah.
They had a really I would say talented multifamily team that went to another shop.
Mm,
The Central Virginia was essentially unrepresented in multifamily, and it was an opportunity to come here and build a team here, right? So like for Central Virginia, the way it works is like you can do like Colliers is very collaborative, so uh, you can do deals in other markets, you collaborate with the local teams, and it's sort of and vice versa. So when Collier's team does a deal, say in like the Central Virginia region, we are the boots on the ground for them. We help them. We drive people to their deal room and provide any sort of assistance they need. Like, so it's like this really collaborative sort of thing. And I was excited because at Marcus, I was plugged into an existing operation. I worked my way up to partner on the team through the years, but it was not my team. And
mm,
I'm very entrepreneurial. Always the way, and it was one of those things where I was sort of stuck in that like a little Richmond sandbox too, and I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I could be everywhere across Virginia. This is like I had a really robust uh, Rolodex in Philly. Like this whole like
mm,
so it's like I was like, this is a great opportunity to just sort of do it myself. And it's
right.
funny because like my former teammates have reached out and they're like, hey, there's room for you with us. And I told them. flat out, I was like, I got to see how this goes, right? Like, so like, because it's just one of those things where you just gotta, roll the dice on yourself every now and then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny because I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go hit the ground running. It's sort of like being like a new agent all over again, building something, and it's like running from a standstill, and because you are everybody, right? You're the
Mm-hmm.
because we were just now bringing, building the team out, but I was alone, and I have an like a assistant at Colliers that kind of handles stuff as well, but it was all the marketing, all of the phone calls that need to be returned. And the thing about a team that I kind of took for granted was the team works when I might not be working, right? Like if I'm
Mm-hmm.
on vacation or if I'm on the road doing a meeting somewhere, if I have to drive 3 hours,
Yeah.
calls are still getting made, calls are still getting returned, marketing is still getting done. All these things are sort of happening. When you're
Yeah.
alone, it's wow. You have to do everything. I mean, there is no quiet drive time across Virginia. It's like you got to get your calls in, you got to call the leads back that are coming in. You got to be quasi responsive. Like everything that everything a broker gets accused of not being, it's like you're one person a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to talk about the deal or whatever, and you can't be everything to everyone at all times. And that was one of the things that I was like, oh my, this is really hard. I don't know. I don't like working at nights and weekends. Like I got kind of used to not doing that, and I had to kind of change everything to where it's like, okay, I have this busy work to do. I do it in the mornings. I do my busy work. I try not to do it at night. And then weekends, I'm an early riser, so I have these like early morning hours where if something needs to get done, I can get it done first thing. But like starting from zero, and I'm not the only person. There's a long line of people that have done this before me, but
Yeah.
it has been one of those things that have been one of the hardest things I've ever done. But also, I'm like, all right, next year when I look back, because I've already done this, I've been a year and a half in, and I think of the first few months and the phone, my phone never rang. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was scary, because it was more or less like kind of like you're telling people, hey, I'm over at Colliers now. Like it's just this whole thing. Like this is
Yeah.
like you're just sort of like trying to get everything going. But it was,
Thank
I'll
goodness
say,
you have the same phone number now. It didn't used to
yeah,
be, right? You had to change your phone number when you changed your company.
yeah, exactly.
Cell
It's
phones.
all the same
Love
cell.
them.
Hmm. But yeah, no, it's been, I mean, it was definitely hard, but it's been
Yeah.
rewarding in so many senses. Like when it finally starts working, it's very rewarding.
Yeah. I think that's the big motivator for a lot of brokers who do choose to strike out on their, well, not on their own. I mean, but even your own team within a larger firm is still startup-esque, and
Hmm.
ultimately having ownership of your own time and opportunities when you do build out, it takes a lot of work, but it is worth it. Um, I do want to touch on something I teased a little bit in your intro, which is how you carved a niche for yourself in the multifamily space, just under institutional levels, but not the smaller ones, not the mom and pops explicitly. How did you target kind of like, this is my sweet spot of who I want to work with? And what was the process of zeroing in on those assets?
I think a lot of it stemmed from that sort of the place that Marcus and Millichap uh, kind of focuses on, right? So that's where I started and
Mm.
learned nearly everything. So and this isn't like an infomercial for Marcus and Millichap, but the training was such that they're just like there's more, you're more, and I think it was when you don't know what you don't know. I'm just a guy who was really good at getting a meeting,
Mm.
and in the beginning of just bringing my mentor with me to the meetings and all that, but it was like the private client space is what it's kind of dubbed is sort of like you're under that institution stuff. It's the developers, but then also the mom and pops, the people that have built portfolios through the years. They're a lot more approachable, and it's the institutional stuff is just really hard to sort of kind of get into in a sense that there's a lot of I don't know. It's just it's harder to sort of like get into that space. And then what I've noticed on the commission level too is sort of the higher you get on the private client space, you start bumping up into the uh, sort of the institutional stuff, and then the commissions are still like really great, but you're still um,
You have the flexibility of working with private side.
yeah, and it was just sort of like we were. So kind of like in the private space, it was just like the commissions were actually like in my head, I always thought bigger and beautiful, better, better deal, right? And
Mm,
I looked at other teams at Marcus who were selling sort of like call it class C minus, class D
mm,
properties that were making twice as much as I was, and the
mm.
commissions were that they were able to negotiate were better, and it was just one of those things where it's like there's just more assets in that space. There's the
Mm.
commissions are, that we're able to negotiate are very competitive. And I don't know, it's a lot more fun. Like I just like working with a lot of these folks. I like their stories. A lot of them are
Sure.
just kind of like pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of folks that started off at one property in 1972 and now they have a giant portfolio. And I don't know, and even the developers too. It's like I'm not from Richmond, and what I found in this town is neither were they. Like they had moved
Hmm.
down for something, and it was sort of like I didn't have to join the local country club to, you know, kind of hobnob with anybody. I had these, I don't know, it was like we were all from this sort of like not from here kind of crowd.
But I've
And
made their place here.
yeah, and it's different in every market. So there's places in Virginia where it's like you have to show up. You can't just call somebody on the phone. They want to see you. There's a lot of, unscrupulous people in commercial real estate. So it's like you have to kind of set yourself aside. But
Right.
the private client space is kind of neat because it's I don't know, it ended up being a very just sort of, yeah, I'm not the first person to ever do it. Like I said, like this is where we kind of focused at Marcus and Millichap, but it was just ended up being a very comfortable sort of space. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's like these
It's a
folks have,
personality fit. The numbers
mm,
work for you. Yeah, totally
yeah,
makes sense. Yeah. And I think that's very true as, younger brokers especially are exploring where they're most aligned with. Like, I do think the personalities of the people that you're going to be representing does actually play more of a role than you think. Like someone could start in retail and realize, wow, I'm just not this person. Like these personalities don't do well with me. I'd much rather be much more about like on the multifamily side. Like I really care about housing. It is worth it. A lot of people fall into where they end up, but as much as you can kind of have that sense of, okay, like how is office how are office investors different than housing investors, different than, industrial, different than class A versus class D? They're all these factors that do play into it. So that's cool that you noticed that pattern and then kind of leaned into it. This is how I'm going to differentiate myself among my competition. And now that's what you do. That's your vibe.
yeah. It's funny. I had there's a manager over at Marcus and Millichap because there's internal competition sometimes where you have teams from other parts of the state that sort of overlap, and
Hmm.
they're building out their business and you're trying to build out yours. And if you're operating in a mindset of scarcity, which I highly recommend changing that mindset to like just one of abundance, because there are plenty of deals out there, even when it feels like there's not, right? But like at the time, I was sort of really operating under, it was like post COVID, things were a little slow. It was like we were just trying to feel it actually might have been like the first half of 2020. And I remember just sort of just complaining about just the internal competition that was happening. And the manager, and this is the most insightful thing ever. He's just like, listen, there's flavors of ice cream, and you're a particular flavor, they're a particular flavor, and you're not going to mesh well with everybody, neither is they. And you just got to kind of just approach it like that. And it is true. It's like there's people who, for whatever reason, our personalities don't jive for whatever reason, and you hear it all the time in the market. It's and it's it you know it's one of those things like there's enough for everybody, right? And you can't do it all, even if you had it. I mean, if you put 5 or 6 deals in my lap right now, I'd probably pass out because I just don't have the bandwidth. But it's like, you know what I mean? But so it's like
Yeah.
it's just sort of doing that. And like this other broker in town, he kind of said, it's like we're all on this riverbank and there's a deal, this river of deals coming through, and you just got to kind of be on the bank to fish them out.
Mm.
But there's enough for everybody. And he is one of the most competitive people in this town, but it's also, oh, that's, yeah, you're right. Like you got to be on the bank, right? And you got to be fishing, but
Yeah.
there's enough out there. And it was just sort of that whole flavor of ice cream thing, really. I was like, oh, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is really true.
That's great. Great
Hmm.
insight. My friend, her version of that is, sometimes two dogs aren't going to like each other. And there's no explanation. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes it's just they don't get along. And that's okay. You don't have to like everybody. You don't have to get along with everybody. But I do appreciate the abundance comment because reframing that from somebody else having a deal means I don't have that deal to that's just a deal that went to someone else and maybe I wouldn't have been a good fit for them anyway. Okay, let me refocus on fishing back in that bank again.
Hmm.
I love that. I was gonna ask what advice would you give yourself, but I think I think that's just really good advice, generally speaking. Um,
Yeah.
I do
And I
want
would
to get
say
in. Oh, go ahead.
the one thing too is to like root for the market, right? So it's like I used to
Mm,
get when I first started, when I saw another broker come out with a deal of like someone I called 2 weeks ago or had a conversation with them to get it, I would be so jealous and so competitive. Like I really wanted the deal. I want to do every deal in the market, right? Most of us have that sort of mindset. But then it was also like, okay, root for the deal, like root for it to close at a good price, like root for whatever, because if that deal closes at a good price, or even like, I mean, just internally, I knew how I priced it or whatever, but it's like know that the market is liquid and it'll be there for
yeah,
my deals, and that was, I mean, like I just want to throw that in there because it was one of those things where like these things will keep you up at night of, oh my God, like I called that guy or like that woman, like we met, we had such a great rapport, like how could she list with the like with that other group, and like it's just like kind of going, okay, didn't work out, there's more to do here, but I hope they get it done, and if not, like there's always the chance to get it when if they
yeah,
don't sell it, they be the next broker in, but also like just for peace of mind or like your soul,
yeah.
kind of root for the deal and root for the market.
At the very least, you get that comp
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
your next
exactly.
client, right?
Yeah.
The very least, the very least. I love that framing. So I do want to get into the technology side of things. So we chatted about this on our prep call. You started learning how to code back in the 2000s. Um, it's not easy. I've tried to learn Python in a past life, and that's the easiest coding language, and it is not easy. So, what initially drew you to building that skill set? I think it came along before you got into brokerage, right? And then how have you started to, how has that technology familiarity flowed into your work in commercial real estate?
Yeah, so it's funny. I have this curiosity of how does, at the time, it was sort of, how does the internet work? I didn't understand how the internet worked at the time and what a website was and then what all these other type of technologies were like. And this is 2007.
Hmm.
And I started delving in and just sort of like learning basic stuff on little courses here and there, just like how the internet worked. And I had this thing. I was like, I really want to build an online database, like a CRM. I was like, I want to do that, like sort of like a Salesforce type of thing, where it just at the time it was not for real estate, it was for my former life. But I was like, how would I do that? And then a friend turned me on. She's like, my brother codes in Ruby on Rails, and it's supposed to be like the easiest thing you can possibly learn. Because believe it or not, the syntax for Ruby is actually easier than Python.
Oh,
Like
maybe I need to look
pseudocode.
into Ruby on
Yeah,
Rails.
well, yeah, but so like Ruby's the language, and it
Yeah.
looks like pseudocode. A pseudocode is sort of like if you were to write out in plain English what you want a program to do.
Mm,
Um, you know, print hello, ask if ask
Yeah.
age if age is greater. Yeah, like you just literally like the English version of the code is not that far off, and it ends up becoming
Mm.
like an easy sort of first language, and it's just fun to kind of code in. And then Rails is a framework that Ruby is the two of them together. Like you can create like a web app very quickly, like
Mm.
couple lines, a couple commands, boom, boom, boom. You got like a functioning web app.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I am smart enough to understand it, but still at the time, for the longest time, did not have the proficiency to sort of make anything work.
Mm.
And I would spend hours and hours of weekend time just trying to learn, debugging and like how can I make this thing work? And I keep tabling it too because I have all these other sort of things that kind of happening, and then
Five
I got into
fundraisers a day.
yeah, and but I was like, I had this like dream of just building something useful, and then and really it's just like, hey, I'm gonna build myself a tool. Maybe it'll be useful to someone else. I don't really know, but
Mm.
and it was like recently, and this has been a struggle for years. I've always been in this sort of getting just far enough and then hitting a wall, and then it's very common with a lot of these things where like one thing causes the rest of it not to work, and it's just
Mm. Hmm.
you literally go crazy. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of starting from the beginning. And then there's this sort of like when things get crazy in real estate, I like to have uh they're kind of like Zen moments where like I just kind of pull completely out. One of my pastimes that I do is I grab a stack of like old baseball cards from like the 80s, and I'm a child of the 80s, so it's like these are all people that I used to like watch as a kid.
Yeah.
So like, and I would just sit there, maybe like the last few hours of due diligence before the deal goes non-refundable, or like when I'm waiting to hear if it's closed, like that intense moment where I'm just sort of like
Mm.
just going card by card. I would do that, and then also delve into like I go back into Ruby on Rails, but like
Mm.
square one, like
Yeah.
this is how you do this, Um,
It's like your forms in martial arts. It's a
exactly,
very out
exactly.
of left field reference, but
No, no, but it is. It's like
yeah.
it just sort of like it's like a basic sort of technique where where you go back to it, and
Mm.
it just sort of like just calms my mind.
Yeah.
And it recently, just with the advancements in the large language models and
Yes.
like all the AI stuff, it was, wait a second, I don't need to code. I need to know how to do it, right? Or what I want to do, and sort of the traps that would cause it to break. But you you mean I don't need to sit and code every single line, and that kind of changed things. Okay, there was, and I think I told you, there's the first thing I did recently since just sort of like the AI sort of like, you know, what do we even call it? It was a kind of, it felt like there was like a time where it wasn't in like in our life, and then all of a
The
sudden it's
zeitgeist.
everywhere. Yeah, and
Yeah.
but it was like I remember like seeing that, and I'm like, oh well, I wonder if I can
I
do
think it
this.
was
And
November 2023 was when
mhm.
ChatGPT 3 came out. Maybe?
Yeah,
It's
and
like
I think you're
barely
right.
been 2 years.
Yeah, and it's like I remember going, well, how good is it? And I remember just sort of messing around because I knew Python as well. Like, so like I go between Ruby and Python, and I've learned Java and a bunch of the other languages too, but I can do everything I need to do with Ruby or Python. And I was like, okay. So like it's a long story, but like I DJ as a like a hobby,
Yeah.
and my computer just has all these music files just like everywhere because maybe they're in my downloads folder, maybe they're on my desktop, maybe they're somewhere. And I was like, I want to figure out how to find a music file and then copy it all into a main directory, and then just sort of clean up the other stuff and kind of get rid of
Mm.
it. And I kind of explained it sort of just like that, and it didn't work on the first iteration, but it built a Python program for me to run where it it did it, and then I was able to just add colors to it. If the file was already in the folder, it was green, and like all these things. And I was like, this is amazing. Now,
Mm.
what else can I do? So then I started doing just anything I thought of that I thought could help me. And I'm working on some stuff now for my business because, like I said, I have moments where or days sometimes where I'm not in the office, and I'm trying to go, how do I build something to help me kind of keep kind of like the till going while I'm not there, and just sort of
Sure.
So I'm very close. I was hoping to have it done so I could brag about it, but it's still buggy. But I'm working on like just sort of like an assistant to where fully trained on my deals. I can incorporate the assistant via text message, like in a chain, and that the
Oh,
assistant is doing the minimal amount of stuff just to keep either engagement with
yeah,
my buyer or my seller or whatever I need to do while I'm in a meeting or on a podcast or whatever, like just to have the
yeah,
just communications going.
yeah,
And it's scary that I can do that, like that I can have come this far. But
yeah,
and I'm also building my own deal room just because I wanted to see if I could do it. And
sure.
I've done everything. I've got it. I got the login. I've got a way to just sort of grant permissions, get a CA, like a all that stuff, and then like life gets in the way, and it's sort of like kind of tabled
Yeah,
because I have features and Crexi and even at Colliers that I have that anyway, so I don't really need to do
yeah,
it. But we're in a time where you could just build whatever you want, and
yeah.
it's really neat.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, there is a line, and we had Topher Stevenson, who's big in the AI space, on the podcast recently, and I was asking him, kind of what is the line between a broker, let's say just an individual, like going out there into the world, finding a tool that's already exists and bringing that on, or having a little bit of coding technology knowledge themselves. Like obviously there are people who are willing or not willing to learn that stuff, but to what extent do you think it behooves brokers, especially with the advent of these LLMs really coming up to speed and you're being able to build these virtual assistants or agents to do different tasks for you? What do you think the pros are? And like, if you had to analyze the barrier to entry, like, is it worth that, in your opinion, to be able to at least understand these tools better?
I think it's sort of if you need it right away, um, it's probably out there. There's a third party you could get it from, and time is very important, right? Like, because like you- the, I'm building this stuff because it's fun, and just trying to see if I can do it.
Yeah.
Like when I built that little music finder thing on my desktop, I was like, I felt like it's funny. The first person I called was my cousin, who's a computer scientist. I'm like, look what I just did. I kind of like rubbed it in his face. He was just like, whatever. But it's like I was like really excited to build it. And it's like a hobby for me. I think I think real estate is intricate enough to where it'll always be like human in the loop. Like I don't think AI will replace anything. I- It might get really good to where you don't know if you're talking to a person or a broker or whatever, right? Or like whatever. Like maybe you can train it to really analyze a deal, like underwriting and all that. But like in my experience, it's like every deal is completely different. Every set of books is completely different. Every follow-up conversation I have with that owner is completely different, right? Like, so I don't think there'll be like this AI that replaces a lot of that stuff, at least flawlessly, but it's not going anywhere. And I think it's only going to get better. It's only going to kind of be at more, we feel like it's everywhere now. I could
Mhm.
imagine it'll only be more
More
like it's
so.
just yeah, and it's like what I tell everybody because like my family's really they're still afraid of it and they think
Mm,
I kind of got into it really quick because I was able to just see how it could take me from like one level to another really fast.
sure.
And I have people that are just the second I start talking about it, they roll their eyes. They don't want to hear about it. It's all you talk
Mm.
about, like all this stuff. And because I'll walk in, like my buddies here at Colliers, we'll be having lunch. I'm like, oh, you'll never guess what I did this weekend. And one guy's like, oh, you're gonna tell us about some AI project? I'm like, well yeah. And it's like literally like they don't want to hear about it, right?
No.
But it's like I think it's it's gonna I honestly think it'll be in every part of life, more good than bad. Because I think the stuff we could use it for, we could train it on our deals, right? We could I mean I look at it as just outside of real estate, if you wrote a book of your life and you trained a model on your life, like say like you write this memoir because you have dementia in your family or something like you. you could train this model specifically on your life to when you can't remember things anymore or need reminders on where you live or like all the other thing. I think there's like going to be so much that kind of goes into this in the future that it's like even if you don't do it for real estate, just kind of get your head around it because it's there's some I think there's gonna be amazing things that are kind of coming down the road. But real estate wise, it's like you do have your third party stuff. There's just some great tools already out there. I'm using some of the research ones right now.
Yeah.
But
Do you have
it's like,
any you'd recommend or you think are really interesting for our listeners?
well, it's funny. I use a database called Mercero, and the thing that got me was I needed a database. I didn't need sort of Salesforce in the sense, but I needed something to kind of keep track of my tasks and my rotation of calls, and it was perfect for that. But then they also had like an AI sort of research kind of module to it.
Hmm.
And this is before I got Crexi. So, because I didn't know that you guys had that sort of, but anyway, so it's like I had this kind of, just help me get up to speed fast. Okay. So like
Hmm.
say my database in Fredericksburg, Virginia is weak. I need to call there. What's the fastest way to get like 400 prospects there to call?
Hmm.
And, I could do it if I spend 4 weekends, uh, researching it and but and there's no silver bullet either, so like knowing that Mercero's not perfect, Crexi's not perfect, like all these other sort of tools that are out there doing the research aren't perfect, but they're not that off either. Like I've gotten a number of prospects through some of the research stuff through Mercero, even with the Crexi stuff too. I was like, okay, cool. Like in even when I do it by hand, I'm not getting 100% accuracy on all these records and who really owns it, and there's mistakes that are made, phone numbers that are wrong, all this other stuff.
Hmm.
But it was like, I just Mercero is what they jumped in first. They were like brand new at the time. They're now on to version 2, which is it kind of looks like very similar to like say like Crexi Pro or like a Reonomy sort of thing from what I understand. Like you can like literally like dive into a neighborhood and
Hmm.
kind of hone in on it. But I like that, just kind of move quick to build another market out really quick. And then, yeah, I mean, like I don't know, I'm trying to think of other like, I thought the research aspect of it would be good, but there's also other like technologies that build out offering memorandums and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
haven't gotten into that, but
People are even
I,
just using GPT to do that,
yeah,
which
and
is
it's like
crazy.
dangerous because so like when I build out anything, like a lot of the stuff that I'm training, like I specifically train it to like if you don't know something, say I don't know, because it will just give you an answer and hallucinate, and all of a sudden you have this data point in an OM that isn't true, or you can't you have to treat it like it's an intern or a very low level person, like literally like a college student or high school student that's there for the summer and
Mixed
read
with like a
everything.
puppy, I feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
It's so eager to say the thing it thinks you want to hear.
Hmm.
You gotta really tell it to be like one of my favorite personal prompts is I will take, let's say, a piece of writing I've done. If I want critical feedback, instead of saying like, "Hey, I wrote this. What do you think?" I'll say, "This idiot wrote this terrible article. What a loser." Find all the ways that they messed up and give like really critical feedback. And they're like, "Yeah,
Wow.
screw this person. Here's all the things they did wrong." And I'm like, "Thank you very much."
That's a really good way to look at it because it's funny.
Yeah.
So I do creative writing as well, and I have it grade me and all this other stuff. But because
Yeah.
I tell it like, don't write this for me, But and then I have it grade me on a couple like things like is it cliche, uh, just the grammar itself. Like I'm not
Yeah.
always writing in perfect grammar and all that, and it tells you like the nicest way of telling you you're should really take another whack at it.
You're like,
But
"Thanks."
I haven't done the like, hey, this moron wrote this. What do you think?
Give it
Like
a
yeah, this
try.
person is dumb. Yeah.
It's funny. And different like Claude will do it differently than GPT will do it, than Gemini will do it. So it's good to I think, take away from all of this, it's important for people not just in commercial real estate, but everywhere, really like just play around with things. Don't think you can rely on it 100% right now, because I wouldn't, but things can get pretty darn close. So kind of just to put a bow on that, do you think in the future with LLMs and with all these tools at brokers' disposal, do you think it's a nice to have to know how to code, or do you think it's going to be more and more of a competitive edge to know under the hood what's going on with these tools and platforms?
The thing, so it's funny, we're in like a bubble right now of like we talk about whatever it was September 23 or whenever like GPT 5 3.5 came out. Now every single tool out there is has AI, some sort of AI functionality, and it's like if you don't, I don't know. It's almost like there was like a general meeting of like, hey, we just got to mention that this is part of everything we do, and it's kind of
Certainly on the venture capital side.
yeah, and
Absolutely,
it's
that meeting happened.
yeah, and it's sort of like it's like kind of understanding what these things really are, right? Like
Mhm.
they're very smart. I mean, very, but they're not smart. They're matching patterns of words and all that, and they're fetching things and they're being helpful and all that. But it's like knowing that you might actually know more, like especially in the field, like if you're an expert in a field, you probably know more than an LLM because they're trained on the internet, and the internet tends to not really be right a lot, right? So I just kind of feel like no matter how you're using them, you should always like trust but verify. Grammatically, it'll probably be correct, but factually might be something you should really like dive in on everything on. But it's like learning to code for me was it was more or less just it's like the when like my father-in-law used to take apart stop or mechanical watches, like pocket watches.
Sure.
And I've done it too, to sort of like how do these things, and I've watched hours of YouTube videos of guys like taking them apart, servicing them, and it's like there's something to like how that works that's very fascinating. If that's your interest, then definitely do it. I don't, the cool thing about it now, I mean, and this is the secret that's out there. It's like you don't have to learn, you don't have to code anything. I mean, this thing will code everything for you. You just need to know, sort of like being like a foreman on a construction site of, okay, we did the foundation, it's time to start putting up some studs, and electricians are going to come in. You got to kind of know the flow because it'll just go off and do something, and you might go kind of on a tangent and all that, but
Yeah.
you don't need to learn, you don't need to know anything about coding. I think it's sort of like learning how to run the programs, especially like say like a Python program is like not, it doesn't run like a tip like what you're used to, right? But
Yeah.
learning how to do that, and I mean I just think it's fascinating, and there just might be something you might want to try. Like maybe you want to build a better model for whatever you're selling, and it would be neat to, and I would say this, like go in and start talking about what you want to do, like what you do, and it'll start saying, okay, do you want me to build uh like internal rate of return calculator, or do you want, and like, you just sort of can get it to build whatever you want, and then before you know it, you have something that's a useful tool just to you. And I think that could give you the edge because not every tool out there, it's like CoStar. CoStar is a good tool for certain things, but it's like it is being everything to everyone, right? So where it's like, if you go and say, I don't know, it just like I shouldn't even kind of bring it up, but it's like you a lot of the technology out there just keeps stacking on other things, and okay, now we're gonna do hotels, and now we're gonna do small retail centers and like whatever it is. It's like if you could just build your own thing and it's nice and clean and crisp, and you hit a button and then you have like maybe your comp set spits out, or if it does a model for you or something like that, and you could tell it to look a certain way and be a certain way, and it's yours. And there's something to that, right? Like you're not held to a subscription somewhere, or I don't know. I'm pontificating, but
Yeah.
I,
No,
because
no,
for me,
all
it's like,
valid things.
yeah, like if I could code, I mean, I don't know. I think of things all the time to do, and I'm being like, there's things I won't talk about because I am in the middle of like, you know, I feel like something big, but I just feel like it's like if you want to do something, if you have an idea, just you could put it in and see if it could build it for you. And I think that's really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a great segue to, building something that works really well for you. You are very focused on the Central Virginia market. You're building your team there. You've been working in it since you were in your Marcus and Millichap days. So let's get into a little bit of what you're seeing in the market currently, especially in multifamily in the niche you've carved for yourself, that kind of just a hair under institutional range. What's happening deal wise?
Yeah, it's funny. It's been an interesting year because um it's funny. It's like not a lot of movement has happened. I watch the 10-year Treasury and sort of as a good barometer of like where I think lending's going to be or cap rates and all that. Like it's just sort of what we kind of base a lot of stuff off of. And I've seen, I mean, it's just been very stagnant in the sense that, like treasuries have moved, call it like 10 to 20 basis points in either direction. And it's just sort of like, even when the Fed announced they're lowering rates, like treasuries kind of stayed the same. And one of the things that I've been sort of talking about with owners is I don't think, even if they lower rates another 25 basis points in the next upcoming months or whatever, I don't think there's gonna be like major swings in any of the sort of like where treasuries are, where lending is going to be for these assets, and sort of like if you're thinking about getting out in a year, you might, that pricing is probably going to be very similar now, and just sort of going like, is right now a good time to cash out or whatever. And in these markets in Virginia, it's interesting because everybody either sold or refinanced when rates were under 4%, and it's been hard to kind of tell somebody, hey, you should sell, because they're literally at a completely different rate environment than when they got into the property. But also, like, we also know that that could kind of be a time bomb in 5 years, depending on how the debt is. So it's like getting in now and just sort of planting the seeds with everybody has been helpful. The all the listings that have come about for me have been clients I've had in the past that are in the sense they just want to cash out, and it's just time
Mm,
for whatever reason. They're not, you know, they might need cash for another endeavor that they're doing or whatever, but it's been kind of life event sort of motivation that's sort of bringing some deals to the market.
yeah.
And it's it's been sort of kind of slow, but we've seen, and I don't know if it's just optimism that things are going to get better, but we've seen a number of deals kind of hit the market recently, and it's like, okay, we're there. And then, like, you launch a listing and it's sort of, you know, I'm pricing deals just because I feel like that's my job. My inclination last year was always, hey, call for offers and see where the market is.
Hmm.
I'm kind of like, you know what?
Just
This
put
is
it out
where
there.
we're supposed to be experts, right? So I'm going to
Yeah.
price this. I'm going to see where it goes. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And having the dialogue with my sellers too, of saying, I think this is where everything's going to come in at. I think, as we said before, there's going to be outliers above and below this, but if you're cool here, let's see where this goes. And it's been that kind of thing. And I do feel, just been talking to the buyer pool too, it there. I would say I don't want to say a more sophisticated buyer pool. I would say they are experienced in the sense that they're able to raise, I want to say, like, cheaper capital, because there's a lot of syndications happening in the last,
Mm,
call
sure.
it 5 years, that I mean, everybody was syndicating deals. We had a lot
Yeah.
of capital coming in from the Northeast,
Yep.
from out West, and it was sort of,
The tide kind of flowed out after that point a little bit, and some
yeah.
people maybe had their pants down.
Yeah, yeah, and it's and then,
Sure.
and then I've also seen just like capital is more expensive now, for
Hmm.
riskier things, and riskier just being age. It could be in a great market, it could be a great asset, but if it's built before 2000, a lot of folks are sort of either demanding a higher return or just sort of baking in a lot of like deferred maintenance, whatever they need to do to kind of get up to speed. But it's been I don't want to say, because I don't want to say it's more sophisticated folks involved, but it's like anybody could have done a multifamily deal a few years ago. I mean, we like anybody, like any broker, any real, like if you got a listing, you were going to sell that thing. I think now it's complicated, and if it doesn't fall apart during sort of due diligence, it's like making sure it doesn't fall apart between getting the financing and then just getting the thing closed. I think it's taking a lot of skill again, and I think mortgage brokers are playing a big role too of being able to put people
Being
into
a
the
little
right debt.
choosier. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like it just seems to be that there's a lot more skill out there, and then also like just it's just quieter. It's like, for if you got 20 phone calls on a deal before, you're getting a lot less, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of being more attentive to people. I'm giving everybody the benefit of the doubt kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fun, but it's been, I don't know, it's slow enough to where I can breathe, but I wish it was three times more activity.
Yeah, yeah. And you could hire people and some AI agents to help you with the extra
Yeah,
work. But
exactly.
it's interesting because to that point of it's a more sophisticated group of people that are working on what deals are in the market. Um, I think that goes back to your point of you want to root for the market, right?
Hmm.
If there's stronger players and stronger deals, then there's more likelihood of those being like successful long-term plays, which will in turn boost the market by bringing in more demand because you're proving out the concepts again and again. Um, and people are just getting smarter because the deals, especially new people are working on, are a little more complex and nuanced and have to go through the ringer to pass the finish line, right? So on the whole, it goes back to tough times build strong, strong people, right? I think we're seeing that play out in your submarket here. So I'm curious, what kind of conversations are you hearing happen most often in the deals that are getting over the finish line this year?
It's really, it's funny because there's not a ton of them, right, to draw from, right? But it is
Sure.
like the
Yeah.
way, like even like internally here, it's really getting it's you almost always have to be creative in an instant if things start going sideways,
Mm.
and it's like I've seen deals like just my colleagues where everything is going great until it's not, and then there's folks raising money to get like the last chunk of stuff for uh, the deal to close, like all this like that kind of stuff happening and all that, but like like literally like broker on the phone dragging everybody in the right direction on how to get it done,
Yeah.
like same
Do
thing
you
with the
have any
lender and
funny
all that.
stories of like a last like lunge to catch something falling out of the sky for a deal?
It's funny. Yeah.
You don't have to share if it's private. Sometimes
Well,
they can be
I'm like, well,
wacky turns.
I'm like, how can I phrase this where nobody will know who I'm talking about, and if the buyer or seller or broker, like, but like, I would say this, it's commercial real estate. There's reasons why we don't have reality shows, like, in behind the scenes, and I think it's sort
Yeah.
of like sometimes you're literally trying to get everything you could possibly, I mean, like, just dumb things of like, like had to run keys around town and at the last second, and it just like, people fighting over things. I had um just like I had a friend tell me about a deal where there was a whole bunch of personal property that was supposed to be left over in this deal that was negotiated, and then when it was there for the walkthrough, and then when the buyer got the keys and went through again, like it was all gone. And it was like, it was
Uh-oh.
this whole thing, and it was like they got the keys but it hadn't closed yet, so there was like they weren't like letting the funds disperse until it got resolved, and it was like, call it $40,000 worth of goods on a $2 million deal, like, like it's really
Yeah.
petty, or maybe it was $3 million, yeah, I forget that, but it was like it's commercial real estate, so like there's these things that are out there that are in. I've never had a deal be smooth. So like if you have, great, but every deal I've done has been just so wacky and unbelievable, and you kind of I don't even like closing deals. Like I love hold on. I love closing deals. I don't get any joy in closing them because they tend to be the most stressful time of the, like from that point where it goes under contract to where at least there's a non-refundable deposit. It is like the worst feeling ever because like you're like I don't I'm not dumb enough to be happy that yeah, like I think this is gonna die, but it probably won't, but I can't, it shouldn't, but
You
it
can't let
probably,
it go. You have to be so on the ball and attentive and
yeah, and it's like it's I don't know, just like there's a lot of moving parts a lot, and I had this one deal. This isn't like a closing deal, but this is like a buyers are liars kind of deal, right? Like I had a buyer that I was like literally gave me a proof of funds letter. I wound up getting them this killer deal on a mobile home park. We wound up closing it, and it wound up being this really fantastic deal. But then like they divulged to me that, hey, that letter I gave you, I only had $1,500 to my name when we went under contract, and I was like, what? I was like, how? And he's like, yeah, I paid this guy. He gave me, and it was like this whole like thing. And I was like, I don't know if I should even know that, but anyway, like everything well ended up working out.
oh
But it
my
was like
God.
knowing that I'm like really like whenever I see anything, like I got a
It's
I
like
got a
in
lender
Star Wars,
letter.
just getting through the door, like at the very bottom cracks, like, whoop, I'm
No,
in.
like this morning, I got a proof, like a lender prequal letter that would look like it was from like a 1995 email where it had like all different fonts, all different colors. And it was funny, I was laughing about it with the seller. I'm like, I'm gonna look into this because it just looks like
A
I
little
made it.
sus.
Yeah, like it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, but I mean, it's just like, it's commercial real estate, and it's like, but
Yeah.
like, you never know. I mean, you just gotta
Never
kind of,
know.
trust and verify.
Always, always, always. Well, to kind of wrap us up here, I would love to know, Marty, going into the market the next couple of years, you're building a team, so both on the entrepreneur side and the market side. If you could record a piece of advice to your future self today that you'll look back on and be like, "Oh, thank you for that, past Marty." What would you tell your future self?
It's funny because I feel like I tell myself this every night at like 2:30 in the morning, right? It's like because you know it's like anytime you do a business plan, you write it with the most sober mind, right? Like you're
Mhm.
going through things, times are good, the bullets aren't flying yet, you're not in the trenches, like it's this very like methodical thing, and then all of a sudden you get in it, and you know, it, everything can go poorly, right? So like the advice that I would give to my future self that I'll probably watch this, maybe I'll watch this in the in 6 months or so, but it's
Yeah.
just that like, it like the markets are unpredictable. Always do your best kind of going in. Expect it all to go crazy. And at the end of the day, good things always tend to happen if you're there, like putting yourself at the right place at the right time. And, you know, the market could only be in a better place 6 months from now than it is today. Hopefully.
Knocking on wood.
Yes, me too, by the way,
You
without
never
trying to rock
know.
the table.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Marty, this has been so much fun. Really appreciate you joining us here on the show. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch? Email, social media, give us all the
Yeah,
goods.
I mean, I've pulled away from social media a little bit. I mean, I'm still like have a LinkedIn account. So like I'm on LinkedIn. It's Marty Mooradian. I'm at Colliers in Richmond. And then my email is marty.mooradian@colliers.com. So, happy to lend a hand with anything, like even to share war stories. Those are always fun. Um, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll
Yeah,
love
and,
it. Thank
and,
you
and
so
and I do
much.
want to say, Shanti, thank you so much. It's been fun.
Yeah, this is so much fun. I mean, this is why I do what I do, these kinds of conversations. So, really appreciate you taking the time. And thank you everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. Leave us a comment, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you prefer video, you can also check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Crexi for video recordings of each episode. And check out our full library of episodes and show notes at crexi.com/podcast. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.